Yes, adult ADHD is definitely real. Unfortunately, there isn't any physical way that we can measure whether someone has ADHD.
Does your partner constantly forget things? And is it getting on your very last nerve? Or are you having a hard time with focusing? Or what about the partner who spends hours on a video game but forgets everything else? We are joined today by an expert who lives with ADHD every day and helps couples to do the same. I am very pleased to introduce you to Carolyn Angelo, who's a licensed clinical social worker in the Washington, D.C. area and the director of the Adult ADHD Center of Washington. Carolyn, welcome to M.E.S.H.
Thank you for having me.
Well, you heard me mention couples. Let me ask you this. One of the things that happens, I think that happens often when people hear about ADHD is, first of all, what is that? And then second of all, well, that's just something that happens to kids. So help us understand that.
Okay, so ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition. It's not a disorder. People often the D in ADHD is for disorder, but it's really a condition, and it has to do with the way our brains function and cope. I have ADHD, so I usually talk about it in the first person. That's what Dr. Brewer meant when she said, I live with it. I live with it in myself. Uh, um, we used to feel that it was just for kids until the 90s. People felt that kids had it and then grew out of it. But now we know that it does exist in adults. It often is not as obvious in adults because oftentimes adults have done a lot of coping uh, by the time they get to adulthood. But it definitely exists in adults.
We're going to talk more about how it shows up in couples, but it would seem to me that if you've got something that you've been struggling with for a while, and I'm not sure that anybody breathing hasn't had that experience of something that they've been trying to work on, but you learn how to mask it, you learn how to hide it, you learn how to do all kinds of things. And I would think at the point that you actually are diagnosed and you get a diagnosis, which gives you some information about what's going on, what a relief that can be.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I've diagnosed people as old as 80, and they
Wow.
all also feel relieved at that point. But there's often the experience of, I wish I'd known this sooner,
Oh,
too.
well, absolutely.
Yeah.
So let's talk about couples. You heard me say at the very beginning, maybe you got a partner who spends like hours on video games. Well, so how could this person have ADHD because they're focusing on their video game ad nauseum? Or, how can this adult have this thing when they've, gone so far in their career? Tell us a little bit about how this shows up in couples.
Okay. Oh, first of all, how it shows up in the individual in the couple. Oftentimes, people don't understand that ADHD can manifest itself in hyperfocus as well as in difficulties with focusing. So that's part of the video game piece, that the person is hyper focusing. So ADHD is not a deficit but a deregulation in focus, as I said
Okay.
before.
Okay.
So oftentimes in couples, there are a lot of ways that it manifests itself. There can develop a parent-child kind of dynamic
Mhm.
when one person has ADHD and the other doesn't, because the person with ADHD oftentimes is a little disorganized, isn't on time a lot of the time, especially if the couple has kids, when being on time can be extremely important. Uh, the non-ADHDer ends up having to take a lot more of the responsibility as if a parent, uh, and that can raise all kinds of issues in the relationship.
So in that situation, one part of the couple has ADHD and the other part doesn't. What kinds of things show up in your office? What are you hearing with these kinds of couples?
Well, I'm from the member of the couple who doesn't have ADHD, who I believe is the neglected member of the couple oftentimes, and who is the one who is, I think, most grateful to get some help in the couple. But they often feel dismissed, uncared for, exhausted, frustrated. They don't understand. One of the things that I say a lot about ADHD is that because the ADHD symptoms are symptoms that are not unique to ADHD, they're symptoms that everybody has every once in a while. Everybody gets disorganized every once in a while, or
Right.
distracted, or frustrated, or whatever. So when the non-ADHD member of the couple sees this happening in their partner, they say, well, when I have that issue, I just buckle down and do it. So what's the matter with you? And the ADHD often over time internalizes the what's the matter with me?
Right.
And then you get that other dynamic of one person feeling one down and inadequate in the relationship.
So it can get to be really complicated. Folks, my guess is that you are already learning something new, and I hope that you will take a moment to share this conversation, to like, to share, to subscribe, and to follow with someone you care about as well as for yourself. Let's go back to the conversation with Carolyn Angelo. Carolyn, you just talked about a situation where one member of the couple has ADHD and the other one does not. What happens if they both have ADHD?
Yeah, I knew you were going to ask that question. Well, it can be pretty dicey. It also, that issue about not understanding often is not there, especially if both have been diagnosed. But a lot of work has to be done in terms of structure and communication, and ways of dealing with the ADHD. And some of the same dynamics can happen, and the one person can feel unloved or inadequate in that dynamic. But it's a lot more complicated, that's for sure.
So we're talking about something that people are can be affected by. They didn't create it, they didn't cause it, they didn't do something bad, but here they are living with this experience and they come into your office. What do you do?
Well, first of all, oftentimes it's very hard to convince the non-ADHDer that they need to change. If my husband would just stop doing that, or just buckle down and get his schedule on time or whatever. So convincing the non-ADHDer that they need to participate in change is really the first step. Then
Okay.
once we've done that, there are all kinds of strategies that can happen. One being really improve communication. Oftentimes, I suggest that the couple have a business meeting once a week. It doesn't have to be very long, but it's a time to communicate schedule and what's happening, et cetera. So the non-ADHD doesn't feel they have to nag the ADHD to get on board with schedules and that kind of thing. It's also important to have time together, and this is true of any couple, but have time together that's not pressure of having responsibilities, but to have date nights and to rekindle the reason that you were together in the first place. And in that regard, oftentimes couples are attracted to each other. A non-ADHDer is attracted to an ADHDer because of their excitement and their ability to do things differently, and their creativity, etc. And so that can be a very important thing to rekindle outside of the structure of the everyday life.
One of the things I heard you reference a few minutes ago is the shame and blame aspect
That's right.
of ADHD.
That's right.
Internally, across the relationship,
That's
in
right.
the place of business. Can you speak a little bit more to that issue, the shame and blame of it?
Yeah. Shame is a really big problem for people with ADHD, especially if it hasn't been diagnosed early.
Okay.
The what's the matter with me, and experiences in school where kids have not been able to live up to their quote expectations. That's often a, an indicator of that ADHD may have been present. So and then the blame uh, enhances the shame, right?
Of course.
Uh,
Yeah.
so that's another cycle. And the non ADHD often feel so frustrated. I mean, they just
Right,
at their wits' end.
right. And another thing that I'm hearing you say is that there's a way to navigate this. One or both of you could deal with this. You might have known about this forever. You might have just found out about it 10 minutes ago. But
Mhm.
there's hope and there's a way to
That's right.
progress and
That's
process.
right. That's right. And ideally, if the ADHDer has not had any intervention in terms of help with managing symptoms, that's part of the treatment plan. That usually an ideal treatment plan for a couple would be that the ADHDer would work on their ability to deal with the symptoms, and then the couple would work together on dealing with the issues that have come up between them.
As you're working with couples to sort of retune, if you will, the way in which they interact with each other, what about how they socialize with other people? Do they say to other people, "This is what we're working on"? Is that necessary? Is it not necessary?
Well, when you say other people, do you mean the people that they're relating to as a couple?
Yeah,
Yeah, I
friends,
think
family,
it's
yeah.
it's totally up to them. Some people are very open about the ADHD. Others are real. Again, there's a lot of shame and embarrassment. My bias is that people should talk about it because there's so much misunderstanding out there that
Yes.
the more we talk about it. For instance, the fact that I talk about my ADHD is to show people that you can be successful and have ADHD, right? And so my bias is to talk about it, but the shame factor can really be an issue in that, and so I think it's really up to the couple.
But clearly, what you're saying is that this is a survivable experience that people have. And I think that in your ability and willingness to share your own personal experiences would absolutely help the couples that you're working with.
Yes, right, exactly. Yeah.
And do you work with individual couples or do you work with groups of couples? How do you do your work?
I do a lot of work with individual couples. We have a couples workshop, which we do, which is a group. It's a one session, 3.5 hour in person workshop with 3 to 4 couples, where we spend a lot of time talking about these very issues. And then we do a lot of exercises and um, uh, discussion. And again, I find that the non ADHD is the most grateful for those because there isn't any place that they have found that they can really be understood in terms of what they're going through.
And sort of get permission for their own exhaustion and their own frustration.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
You've given us really such a lot to think about. The couple in which there's one who has ADHD and the other one who doesn't. Is there a typical presentation you're going to see when they first come into your office?
Yeah, the non ADHD is frustrated as can be, thinking of quitting, and the ADHD is depressed and feeling lousy about themselves and ashamed and frustrated and misunderstood. Yeah.
So that these couples are able to come into your office, it sounds like almost on the brink of a divorce,
Sometimes.
but then able to really move through that, move past that with greater understanding, better communication. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, it can be. It can be, absolutely.
So, Carolyn Angelo, director of the Adult ADHD Center of Washington, D.C., how do people get more information about you and about the work you're doing and about your center?
So our website is adultadhdcenterdc.com. And there's lots and lots of information on that website about the couples work and about our coaching program and our psychotherapy program, etc.
So again, that's the Adult ADHD. Is it the, or how does it start? What's the exact?
adultadhdcenterdc.com. No, yeah.
Okay, terrific. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate having you here and giving us such great information.
Thank you for having me. Take care.
Absolutely. And folks, I want to thank you for once again joining me on this edition of M.E.S.H. I want you to like, to share, to subscribe, do what you need to do to help M.E.S.H. to grow. And hopefully I will see you next week for yet another conversation that's designed to grow your awareness about you and the world in which you live. Thanks so much.